Time of Wonder. Out to the islands that poke to the rocky shores above the water of Penobscot Bay, you can watch the time of the world go by. From minute to minute, hour to hour, from day to day, season to season, you can watch a cloud peep over the Camden Hills 30 miles across the bay. See it slowly grow and grow as it comes nearer and nearer. See it darken the hills with its shadow, and then see it darken one after the other. Islesboro, Western Island, Pond Island, Hog Island, Spectacle Island, Two Bush Island, darken all the isles in between until you on your island are standing in the shadow, watching the rain begin to spill down across the bay. The rain comes closer and closer. Now you hear a million splashes. Now you even see drops of water. On the water, the age-old rocky point, on the bayberry, on the grass. Now take a breath. At the water's edge on a foggy morning in the early spring, you feel as though you're standing alone on the edge of nowhere. You hear a snorting sound from out of nowhere, and you know that no, you're not alone. A family of porpoises is nearby, rolling over and over, having an acrobatic breakfast of herring on the bay. Then, through the fog, you hear Harry Smith over at Blasto's cave start the engine of his lobster boat and go out to pull his traps. Suddenly, there's a ripple and a splash along the shore that makes you jump. It's the wake from Harry Smith's lobster boat, and you smile because you almost got wet feet that time. The ripple disappears into the fog, and though you cannot see it, you know that it is silently gliding on its way. Then another distant, unseen splash, and the gulls and the cormorants on Two Bush Ledge, with their seabird sense of humor, start giggling and laughing because they too were suddenly surprised by the wake. Back from the shore, the trees look like ghosts. The forest is so quiet that you can hear an insect boring a tunnel deep inside a log. And the other sound, not the beating of your heart, but the one that's like half a whisper, is the sound of growing ferns, pushing aside dead leaves, unrolling their fiddleheads, slowly unfurling, slowly stretching. Now the fog turns yellow, the bees begin to buzz, and a hummingbird hums by. Then all the birds begin to sing, and suddenly the fog has lifted, and you find that you're singing too, with the blue water sparkling all around, with the blue water sparkling all around. At the height of summer season, the bay is spotted with boats, with racing sailboats, with cruising schooners, and busy fishing boats, and with buzzing outboards. In the afternoon, you sail among the islands, pushed by gentle breezes. You sail close by Swain's Cove ledges, where a mother seal is nursing her baby. And then at sunset, with porpoises puffing and playing around your boat, you come and set a course for the island that is home. The rock of the point of the island is very old. It was fiery hot when the world was new. It was icy cold when a glacier covered it with grinding weight. This morning the rock is warm in the sun and loud with the happy noise of children who've come to spend the day. They dive off the rock and swim, then stretch out dripping in the sun, making salty young silhouettes on the old scars made by the glacier. In the evening, when the tide is high again and all your guests have gone, you row to the point feeling lonely until an owl asks a question. A heron croaks an answer. A snail sniffs softly until he recognizes you. And cider ducks and fishhawks all are listening, all are watching as you row. By the rock you shine a light down into the water. There's a crab in the bottom where you were playing this afternoon. He tiptoes sideways through the castle gate and disappears into his watery keep. You snap off the light and row toward the dock. The stars are gazing down, their reflections gazing up. In the quiet of the night, 100 pair of eyes are watching you, while 100 pairs of eyes is watching all over. As the days grow shorter and shorter, there are fewer and fewer boats on the bay, until at last the only fishing boats are left. The wind blows brisk from the northwest, rustling the birch leaves. The ferns change from green to yellow to brown. The robins are gone from the lawn and the garden. The swallows have flown from their nest into the boathouse to take their place as migrating birds from the north stop to rest on their way south. The crows and the gulls fly over, fussing and feuding, and the hummingbirds visit the petunia patch. Miss Billings flies over looking for schools of herring. When he sees you waving on the beach, he dips the seaplane's wings in greetings. On some days the wind is so strong that not even the sturdy fishing boats are out on bay. Now is the time for being watchful. All other times there's not a breath of wind to ripple the reflection of the unusual sky. Now is the time for being prepared. Over in Blasto's cave, Harry Smith looks at the sky and says, "We're going to have some weather." On Eggemorgan Reach, Clyde Snowman listens to the loons and say, "It's a-comin'." On Cape Rosier, Ferd Clifford listens to the sound of the bell of Spectacle Island and says, "She's gonna blow." On your island you feel the light, crisp air feeling go out of the air and a heavy stillness take its place. It's time to make a quick trip for the mainland for some food and gasoline. It's time to get ready. We're gonna have some weather. It's a-comin'. She's gonna blow. Take aboard groceries, take aboard gasoline. All the talk is of the 100-pound acres, 2-inch rope, and 1-inch chain. And will it hold? And the weather. And when? Mr. Gray strokes his chin and says, with the next shift of the tide, "Hurry for home. There's much to be done before the tide is too low." The ledges behind Pumpkin Island are covered with gulls, all sitting solemnly faced in the same direction. There is no giggling and cackling as your wake splashes the ledge today. This is no time for a seabird's sense of humor. We're gonna have some weather. It's a-comin'. She's gonna blow with the next shift of tide. Home on the island as you pull in the sailboat, chain the motorboat fast to its mooring, pull the rowboats high off the beach. Mr. Smith hurries by with his boatload of lobster traps that he's been taking up. Over in Swain's Cove, Mr. Billings puts extra lines on the wings of his seaplane. Fishermen put extra lines on the herring boats and scalloping boats. At Frankie Day's boatyard up Benjamin River, and at Hal Vogue's boatyard, Horseshoe Creek, men are working on with the tides, pulling up sloops and yaws, ketches and motorboats, shackling chains, tying ropes, making things fast, battening down, getting ready. With the groceries and kitchen shelves, bring in wood to build a fire. Fill the generator with gas, then take one last careful look while the calm sea pauses at dead low water. A mouse nibbles off on one last stalk from the garden and drags it into his mouse hole. A spider scurries across his web and disappears into a knothole. All living things wait, while the first surge of the incoming tide ripples past Eagle Island, ripples past Dorijo, past Pickering, past Two Bush Island. The bell buoy off Spectacle Island sways slightly with the ripple, tolling, tolling, tolling the shift of the tide. Gently at first the wind begins to blow. Gently at first the rains begins to fall. Suddenly, the wind whips the water into sharp, choppy waves. It tears off the sharp tops and slashes them into the smoky spray, and the rain comes slamming down. The wind comes in stronger and stronger gusts. A branch snaps from a tree. A gull flies over, flying backwards, hoping for a chance to drop into the lee of the island. Out in the channel, a tardy fishing boat wallows in the waves, seeking shelter of Buck's Harbor. A tree snaps. Above the roar of a hurricane, you see and feel, but do not hear it fall. A latch gives way. People and papers and Parcheesi games are puffed hair over eyes across the floor, while father pushes and strains to close and bolt out the storm. Mother reads a story, and the words are spoken and lost in the scream of the wind. You are glad it's a story that you've often heard before. Then you all sing together, shouting, "Eyes have seen the glory," just as loud as you shout, with dish towels tucked in by door sills, just to keep the salt spray out. The moon comes out, making a rainbow in the salt spray, a promise that the storm will soon be over. Now the wind is lessening, singing loud chords in the treetops. Lessening, it hums as you go up to bed. And the great swells coming in from the open seas say shh as they foam over the old rocks on the point. Lessening, the wind whispers a lullaby in the spruce branches as you fall asleep in the bright moonlight. The next morning you awaken to an unaccustomed light made by the frosty coating of salt on all the windows. And out of doors the gentle morning lies reminders of yesterday's hurricane. Fallen and broken trees are everywhere, on the terrace, on the path, blocking your way at every turn. You cannot walk on familiar paths and trails, but you can explore the tops of giant fallen trees, and walk on trunks and limbs where no one has ever walked before. Then, seeking out still more places where no one's ever walked before, you explore the jagged holes left here by roots of fallen trees. Under an old tree by the house, you discover an Indian shell heap, and poking in the thousands of snow-white clamshells, so old they crumble at the touch, you realize that you are standing on a place where Indian children stood before the coming of white men. Now it is the time for one last chore, of hauling seaweed from the beach to fertilize the garden. Spreading the seaweed with its iodine smell, you're pleased to see the storm-flattened sunflowers are once more lifting their faces to the sun. And here are the hummingbirds, humming a hymn to the morning, making a final round to the last of the petunias. It's time for the hummingbirds to leave the island. It's the end of another summer. It is time for you, too, to leave the island. Goodbye to the clams and mussels and barnacles, to crows and swallows, gulls and owls, to sea urchins, seals, and porpoises. It's time to reset the clock from the rise and the fall of the tide to the come and the go of the school bus. Pack your bag and put in a few treasures, some gull feathers, a few shells, a book of pressed leaves, a piece of quartz that came from a crack in an old rock on the point. And children, don't forget your toothbrushes. Then all aboard, and around Deer Island, past Bridge Island, past Pumpkin Island, across Eggemoggin Reach. For the last time this year, take a farewell look at the waves in the sky, take a farewell sniff of the salty sea. A little bit sad about the place you're leaving, a little bit glad about the place you're going. It's a time of quiet wonder. For wondering, for instance, where do hummingbirds go in a hurricane? The end.